One of the deadliest and most feared viral infections of all time, measles is an acute respiratory sickness that brings on a heavy fever, a hoarse cough, infection of the eyes aka conjunctivitis, spots, and a distinctive rash over the skin which appears some 2 weeks after exposure. Lingering up to 2 hours in a room after being spread, measles is particularly dangerous due to its nature of how it's spread. The disease is spread through the air and it's the cause of over 100,000 deaths annually for those who have not been aided by the measles vaccine. It's been long well known that like many other ailments, measles does weaken your immune system. However, it seems that it does a number on it, more so than initially thought. The way that it does this is that it apparently actually goes so far as to actually wipe the so-called memory bank of the human body's immune system, meaning your body will actually almost forget all of the viruses and pathogens that it's been initially exposed to and previously learned to defend against. This basically means that if you have recovered from a deadly disease or built up antibodies versus a serious viral infection, if you then catch measles, your body will not know what to do versus it if it's exposed to it once more, and acting just like it did the first time it came into the virus. This means potentially years of fought-off viruses and infections will be totally forgotten, leading your body to be vulnerable. This process or phenomena is called immune amnesia, the memory loss or loss of the memory bank of the immune system. A couple of studies featured in Science and Science Immunology digs deep into the mechanisms involved in such a process, doing so by comparing two blood samples from children in the Netherlands both exposed to and not exposed to the measles virus. The virus attacks the immune cells of the body, weakening you during an infection cycle. Studies with chimpanzees performed to make virus movement illuminate showed researchers that the virus attaches onto immune memory cells, their favored target. The purpose of immune memory cells is to basically create a bank of knowledge over your lifespan, a virtual catalogue of all of the body's past lifetime of infections and how they were conquered. By infecting these specific cells, the virus wipes out some, if not sometimes most, of the body's immune memory, as well as force it against itself in a sense of civil war, to make healthy immune cells kill the infected counterpart cells. Not only does it target these cells, the virus also then settles in the lungs and nose, hence why it's a respiratory tract infection, a method it does so to project and then spread itself via sneezing and coughing of infected subjects. The measles vaccine is one of the most important ones to take, and there's a high chance you've already taken it. Unless you're in a third world country, you could be at risk. Before 1963, when it was released as a cure or a precaution, almost every single child would be exposed to measles. It was an epidemic, causing the deaths of over 2.6 million of them every year. The measles vaccine is more commonly packaged around the world as the MMR vaccine, coupling it together with protection against mumps and rubella, other similar dangerous infections. And it definitely works. In fact, the measles problem in the first world is almost non-existent. This is because the actual vaccine has an efficacy of nearly 97%, meaning that level of protection can mostly be assured from a combination of 2 doses. However, 98 different countries since 2018 have reported rising cases regarding measles infections, referenced from a UNICEF report. Certain issues with infrastructure problems and civil rights issues or disagreements have caused interference with campaigns to get vaccinated against measles, especially with the recent global situation that we experienced during 2019 to 2022, making the problem worse, causing more infections due to less people being protected against the measles virus. Although herd immunity, the process in which the majority of the population become immune to a virus and thus spread is reduced, is consistent, complacency can cause problems. Measles acts as a sort of amplifier to make secondary diseases or infections far more dangerous by weakening the immune system and wiping its memory bank. This means that a spread of measles and how fatal it can actually be is mostly dependent on the health of the population. Any background or secondary infections could cause high mortality rates in poorer, unvaccinated countries. So it's clear measles is no joke, and it's definitely not eradicated in certain portions of the world. What do you think? Have you ever had measles? Did you get immunity? Let us know in the comments down below. Like the video and subscribe to the channel for more exclusive videos that you'll only find over here.
Some people think measles is just a rash, but the problem is it can be so much more than that. It can lead to really serious complications, things like brain swelling, meningitis, blindness, and liver problems, to name just a few. In some ways, vaccines may have become a victim of their own success because they're working so well, doing what they're supposed to do. maybe people aren't seeing the serious complications of things like measles anymore, and maybe then thinking, this isn't a serious disease, why would I need a vaccine? But that couldn't be further from the truth. 20 years ago, some now completely discredited research published in the Lancet Medical Journal, which looked at just 12 children, sparked fears that the MMR vaccine may somehow be linked to childhood behavioural issues, autism. The vast, overwhelming majority of scientists and medics around the world say this is completely wrong, and there has now been loads of research to show there is no link. In fact, Andrew Wakefield was later struck off from the medical register, and the Lancet withdrew the study and said it shouldn't have been published.
But it did add fuel to the anti-vaccination movement. And there are experts that say that because of this information, lots of children around the world were not vaccinated, and some got measles as a consequence. But the anti-vaccine movement is as old as, well, vaccines. And since the 18th century, the subject was fertile ground for conspiracy theories reflecting a distrust of the government, fearing it as a tool of the establishment.
The problem is now that social media can spread this bit of misinformation more widely, more quickly, and public health experts are really worried that some parents may just be hearing these more sceptical voices and not hearing the important messages they're putting out, that vaccines can save lives, have been given safely to millions of children worldwide. The World Health Organization says the measles vaccine alone saved more than 20 million lives in the last 2 decades. Another reason some communities, some pockets of communities and some countries aren't getting the vaccine is that the infrastructure simply isn't there. The healthcare system isn't set up well enough to provide the vaccine for all the people that need it. The issue with vaccines is that they work on a principle of something called herd immunity, and in this case that means that 95% of the population needs to have had the vaccine and have been immunised in order for the community to be fully protected. So some experts say that while choosing not to give a child a vaccine may be an individual choice, this is putting other people, making them vulnerable to a disease, older people, very young people, leaving them at risk of a disease that could ultimately be fatal.
A few tears now for protection later. Most mums in California vaccinate their children against measles, mumps and rubella and other illnesses. This latest measles outbreak started here at Disneyland, California at the end of December, probably brought here by a visitor from another country, but it's now spread to dozens of cases across 7 states and Mexico. But the worst affected is California, despite having a comprehensive vaccine program for many years. The number of households opting out of vaccines is on the increase. Less than half the children at this school have had the MMR jab, and there are some strong opinions to be heard at home time.
I felt like the worst of the two evils was to vaccinate them and have them have a negative reaction versus not vaccinate them and have them get sick for a week. Now that the measles is coming back, I will vaccinate my children, keep them safe from what's ever going around.
I vaccinate. Vaccination is on par with parenting and religion. I think there's a lot of heated debates that happen around that, and I think a lot of misinformation. We get this information with vaccinations, and when that information gets out there, whether it's a myth or not, people hang on to it, and so I think you have to debunk those myths.
The measles are so contagious, suspected patients come to a tent in the hospital car park to be assessed. It's dangerous but no longer a common illness. Here, it's taken extremely seriously.